Stuff you sent, Chief, is also in the packet.
What?
The stuff you sent on the academy.
Yep.
Is also in the packet.
The matrix is.
The matrix is not in the packet. Yeah. Did the matrix make the packet?
No, the packet would not, it would not, the matrix was sent as a separate email, and so was the two policies
Yes.
and.
Okay, so those will be in an email, not in the packet.
Correct. Those would be separate. I can't take credit for a lot. I mean, I plagiarized.
No,
I
thank you
reached out
for-
to a bunch of, a couple of people that I went to the National Academy with.
Well, I think what I like about it is it also lays the rules
Yeah.
for all the officers. Like, it's so much better. Like, I would rather know the rules I'm being held to.
And that was the whole, suggestion, when the committee discussed it, and then, Essie and I talked a lot about it, so, it's kind of where we went with it.
All right, 6:30. I'm going to. Get this to work now.
Muted.
Yeah, get this to work. All right. So we are recording and we're live streaming, and if people come into the waiting room, I will let them into the meeting to join. I will let them in, but we can get started. So I would like to make a motion to call the New Paltz Town Board Police Commission to order for August 19th, 2021.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So just to, this meeting is a hybrid in-person and Zoom meeting. We're live streaming on YouTube. We're also, if people want to join via Zoom, they can. And we ask people to, we have this meeting thing here, but if multiple people talk at the same time, it gets confused and it's hard. We've already been told where it's hard to hear. Which is why we're all closer than we'd like to be, sitting here at the table. So, and if you're in the audience and you speak, it will direct its camera towards you and everyone will know that you're speaking during the meeting. So unless it's during public comment, please do not speak. Yeah, that's all I have to say. The next is the New Paltz Opioid Overdose Prevention and Response Team. The OOPRT will be offering in-person Narcan training and free Narcan kits. Recovery support as well as harm reduction information and resources will also be available. No appointment or registration needed. Simply stop by Hasbrook Park on Tuesday, August 31st between 4 and 7 p.m. This important community event is being offered in recognition of International Overdose Awareness Day. And so, any other announcements?
Just have a few.
Okay.
First, just the conversation with the police, our monthly informal sessions continue. Anyone that's interested should check our website. It's the third, we hold them the third Wednesday of the month. We do all vary the dates and the times and the locations so that we can try to accommodate people. Yesterday's session was over at Morel Pool, and we had a couple of people come in, which was nice. So again, we'll do that again in September. Our Citizens Police Academy, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but that starts September 8th and runs through October 27th, if anyone's interested. and attending, they should look at again, go to our website. There's registration and information there, and also the curriculum is available. Just to kind of, piggyback on the announcement about the opioid awareness, just I would encourage anybody that can and is available to seize on the opportunity to attend the training. If not, there are other trainings available on the New Paltz Opioid Prevention and Response Team website. As a county, we're still dealing with overdoses. We had 270 ODs this year so far, 34 that are in comparison to 300 ODs last year this time, and 43 fatalities. So just again, I think it's a great event, and I would encourage anybody to attend and to get that invaluable training. And also just want to give a thanks and a shout out to the Ulster County Department. They applied for a grant. We were able to secure 9 more Nalox boxes. These are boxes that we place at various locations in the community that house Narcan. They can be used by anybody, access to anybody. So we have 9 more boxes that will be about the community, and we're able to also secure through them 500 fentanyl test strips. So we're working with the Office of Community Wellness to make those accessible. And that's all I have for the instance.
Okay, so we'll move on to public input. And so for best recording quality, we ask everyone to speak up and take turns speaking. Don't speak over one another. Audience members will need to raise your hand. Zoom, I cannot see anyone's physical hands on camera. So if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand, and I will call on you, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. So does anyone have any comments here? Okay, we'll start with in person. Please, if you could come and sit at the table and make a comment, just so people at home can hear you.
My name is Mateo. I'm a full-time resident here in New Paltz. I want to say I attended the conversation with the police yesterday. Thank Daisy for sharing the ideas and the things that I think a lot of people have in common, and want to just invite as many people as possible to think about ways that they can get connected and involved, especially now where we're at with the pandemic, where we're at with schools reopening, where we're at with really thinking about how to take anti-racism work and put it into daily practices. I think this is a time when we need to think of ways to build more rapport, more communication, familiarity, and trust with, police department and town officials and community members, and think about ways to integrate and share resources. So I have a couple of questions and comments. I did email them to Commissioner Torres. I don't know if you got them, but and I understand we're limited with time, and maybe these are things that the commission wants to review and then just post responses to online. I'm very curious about when the police commission is going to include community members, because we have town officials and we have the police chief. We don't have community members represented, and so there's an inherent conflict of interest. I know that's been raised before. The SUNY New Paltz University Police, which is the state police department, has a specific anti-racism statement posted on their website, and I can forward that website to you. Neither the town nor the police department have a specific statement around anti-racism work. So how can this be addressed immediately and ensure that community members are specifically informed and assured that inclusion, non-discrimination, and anti-racism efforts are ongoing in the different departments through the town? And I know that like Ulster County and the town of New Paltz is bound by equal opportunity and affirmative action mandates, but I think it's really meaningful to see those statements posted. So, and then I was thinking similarly, with this idea of like how to creatively do training and use resources without huge budget. Is it possible for the police department to participate in anti-racism workshops along with other trainings, along with university police, state police, Ulster County Sheriff, and other local LEAs, in order to reduce cost, share skills, and build a stronger culture of dialogue, learning, and support among all the officers and community trainers? So I'm just putting that out there as a suggestion. And then my last comment is around ways to build familiarity and trust and recognition with community members and police officers. So again, I may be a little bit off, but there's approximately 26 full-time, part-time officers in the department who might be patrolling or responding to community needs at any time, but their names, their faces, their training, their credentials, their experience are not posted on any website that I could find. So I'm just posing to the police commission how to build that familiarity, recognition, and trust by promoting what I believe to be an excellent level of training and experience by the officers, but we don't know that. And if I don't know that as a full-time resident, imagine other residents don't know that, and then visitors and students, they don't know who they might be coming into contact with. And I think it would be advantageous to really highlight that. And if there's concerns about privacy or other things, then those are things that get worked out and maybe find some creative solutions. But getting to know the people who are on duty and charged with community safety and law enforcement. So those are my comments.
Thank you so much.
Anyone, we'll alternate back and forth, so just make sure that, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make a public comment? We'll kind of go back and forth. If not, does anyone here have any comments?
I'm just here to answer questions if you have them for the.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to the monthly report. I just want to make one announcement. I meant to bring this up earlier, but the public comment made me think of it. We are working on the citizens, not the public part of the police commission. So we're going to have, we have that law. We're working on it with first the town attorney took a look at it. We're reinstating what the town had before it was abolished. And so the commission will be made up entirely of town residents. The town attorney took a look at it. Then the labor attorney took a look at it to make sure it didn't conflict with the collective bargaining agreement. They're all done with it, but we couldn't get it back to the town board early enough before this meeting. The town board has to have it on their desks for a certain number of days before we can vote on setting a public hearing. But we will be at the next meeting, September 2nd. That law will be available for people to look at, and the town board will set a public hearing probably for the meeting following that, mid-September, and people will have the opportunity to make comments on that law. And then, if we don't make big changes, it could happen as early as September, depending on how much we have to change it, somewhat after that. But it's going to happen in the next 2 months.
And Neil, can you just repeat, are we ready to receive applications from interested citizens of the town of New Paltz for that commission now?
Yeah, we might as well start receiving applications and we can start talking to them. So I guess you're right, David. There's no need for us to wait. People may be interested in knowing exactly what the role of the commission would be, but they can look at that at our next meeting. That will be available for public viewing, and people can read it and decide, do I want to be part of this or not? And then you can decide. But if you already know you just really want to be part of it, send in your name.
Yeah, and I think we should definitely do that. And I'm just thinking of this now, that I just want to make sure that should we adopt that law mid-September, that we are in a place to, like, what it would mean if we don't yet have people identified and we've adopted a law.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
We can't adopt the law
Yeah.
and then there's no police commission because we have no people to be on it. So it may be that we have to wait until we have a quorum.
I would recommend then that I actually think that we should put a notice in the paper the way we would for other volunteer positions in our community, just to say that we're looking to reconstitute in some form a civilians police commission, and if people are interested. And I know that, Jen, we had talked a while ago and we thought this would be a much quicker process for you to be a part of that, and then we could start that and then hopefully be in a much better place come September, should we be able to adopt it.
And are we able to put the draft role and responsibilities as it will likely appear, or is that going to be premature and we'll wait till September for that?
It's really, if the board members are okay with that.
Yeah, I think putting the draft of the old law, at least, and saying this was our old law, which is going to be guiding our new law, at least, and so interested.
Yeah.
I mean, the old law is on the web, it's not in the E-code 360. And the new law is not really all that much different at all. We had to change a few things because it's that, so civil rights law 50A has been repealed, FOIL laws have changed a little bit, so some of those, that's what we had to have everyone look at.
Yeah, I think it would be good if we can offer a framework to people, just so they have a basic idea of what they're looking
I
at.
agree, and we really want to reach out to the community for folks to begin identifying themselves as interested in serving on a police commission.
And I would say too, that for, not to put pressure on people who are listening via Zoom, or people who are also in the audience who have talked about this topic as well, but I would hope that they would reach out to their circles as well to try to get people to be engaged in that process, just so we can get as large of a group as we can.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll hand it over to the chief of the monthly report.
All right, thanks, sir. So obviously a little bit more material than previous months to go over with this month's report. But I just, want to start off with, for me, just saying that I'm really proud of our members. This last month has been difficult. We have encountered some situations that, our officers are dealing with that are highly stressful and a highly hostile environment. And I'm just proud of the way that they have conducted themselves. In addition to that, just the way that they have responded with covering tours and making sure that we're able to operate. It reflected next week, but just for example, over the last week, we have been down 5 full-time people between vacant shifts, illness and injury, and that's 5 of 13 full-time police officers. So we have been mandating officers to cover shifts, as had detectives covering shifts. I've been covering shifts. So, it's just, I'm really proud of what the officers have been doing. And I just wanted to, testament to what they, how they feel about the job that they do and providing for the community. So, in terms of the report itself, nothing on mine. I do want to just flip first to the detective division's report. They've logged in a total of 110 cases so far this year versus the 92 from last year. They have been rather busy. And the cases themselves don't always reflect the resource intensity of those investigations. So they have been rather busy, helping, whether it be assisting on a couple different calls. In terms of the investigative highlights, the first case that they were involved in was back on July 13th. We had an officer assaulted over at Memorial Pool, and so the detective division was involved in that particular case, in assisting with not just the arrest of the individual, but processing for evidence, and that individual has been charged with an assault on the 2nd. They were also involved with another incident. On July 18th, an officer had blood spit in their face by an individual who had claimed to have been HIV positive. And we have filed felony assault charges after speaking with the district attorney's office related to that. The officer went to the hospital and is okay at this point, but following up on the procedure, following medical procedure with that. And then the other investigation relative to the armed robbery that occurred on Main Street back on July 24th, following a 2-week investigation by detectives, we were able to identify and apprehend 2 of the 3 suspects involved in that. We recovered the firearm that was involved in that. We'll review the defensive action reports related to that incident next month, because that happened in August. But just a great involved with that patrol, the detectives, everyone, working together in terms of IDing and apprehending these individuals. We still have 1 individual who's has not been taken into custody. We're hoping to have them turn themselves in sometime within the next week or so is what we're hoping. And then finally, the detective spent a good deal of time. It sounds like it's relatively easy, but we were able to destroy 20 firearms that were in our possession in our evidence locker. But it's somewhat of an arduous process to get that approved and done. For a while, the state police were not accepting weapons for destruction, but they recently began doing so. So we were able to get up and destroy 20 of those. So it helps us, frees up space in our evidence room, and especially with the move that. So we have 5 commendation letters for this month. The first was for Officer Peace. The individual who wrote this letter wanted to thank them for providing assistance in retrieving their keys when they fell into the sewer. He was reassuring, kind, optimistic, and was able to calm her in the stressful situation, and just wanted to thank him for his efforts in that case. Next, thank you letter, commendation letter, was for Officer Kaylin Marsh. This was stems from a traffic stop. The individual just wanted to write a thank you and attached a copy of the business card that Officer Marsh had issued as part of the stop. The next is really, I would consider a combination, but just a get well card that was sent to the police department for Officer Marsh when involved here had heard about her assault at the pool. Just wanted to wish her a speedy recovery, and wanted to thank her for keeping this community safe. And then the next commendation was for Sergeant Puco and Officer James. They had responded to a report of a child that had fell into a sinkhole on Colonial Drive. They responded. The child was in there. They were able to help free them. And this was just it was a phone call. So this to our dispatch, and conveyed it to them. But we also did receive a thank you card, a drawing, and so a copy of it is on our refrigerator in the break room, and the officers were very, from the child, and the officers were very happy to receive that.
That's very cute.
Yeah, and then the last was a thank you regarding a road hazard, but I guess we got the thank you, but we can't take full credit. So I have to give a shout out to Chris Marks and his crew. You know, we took this phone call and the officers responded out, but ultimately ended up needing highway to come out, which they did immediately, and were able to rectify the issue. So thank you to Chris and his crew. The individual involved dropped off some coffee and donuts, and so sorry about that. Any questions on any of those? Okay. So we do have 15 defensive action reports to review for the month. They were from 5 different incidences. 8 of them will involve physical direction, physical force. 5 of them involve the deployment and use of OC, Holy Rose Capsicum pepper spray, and 2 involve the unholstering or display of OC. So the first one stems from an incident that occurred on July 11th. The defendant in this case is a 20-year-old male, approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall, 160 pounds, medium build, white. The officer who initiated this was stopped by staff from one of the establishments downtown because this individual was a patron inside and had caused a disturbance inside, spit on some of the staff in there, and they wanted him arrested. The officer walked up, engaged the individual in conversation, told him he was under arrest, and then the individual struck the officer, punched the groin, took off running. The officer followed, was able to give chase and direct him down onto the ground, where a struggle continued to ensue. The officer was able to eventually pin this individual down onto the ground, and with the assistance of other officers and the staff of this establishment, able to take this individual into custody. in terms of this, we received 3 reports for this incident, again, because the other officers were involved. So the second defensive action report, again, related to the same individual, was there to document that the officer used an arm bar to try and gain control of the individual's arms while taking him into custody. And then the third defensive action report was, again, documenting another officer who was there grabbing the other arm and placing their shin across the calves of this individual because he was kicking out at the officers. So the defendant in this case was placed into custody and was being processed. While being processed, he was charged with resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and while he was being processed, and in the car with the windows open, called out to one of the officers who turned and then got spit in the face by this individual as well. Ultimately, the person was charged with possession of forced instrument, harassment, 2 counts, and resisting arrest. Just based upon our view, the review that we did in the investigation, the force and the actions of the officers were consistent with training and our policy in that particular case. I don't know if there's any questions related to that. Okay. So for the next case, there are 4 defensive action reports filed. This is for the incident at Morello Pool. The subject in question there is a 45-year-old male, approximately 5 feet 11 inches tall, 250 pounds, filled white. We responded to a reported disorderly patron at Morello Pool. Officer Marsh was the initial responding officer, began to speak with that individual. At one point, turned to walk to speak to someone else who was involved in this. This individual went after Officer Marsh. The other officer on scene was able to step in, and that's when the fight ensued. Officer Marsh, this individual then grabbed Officer Marsh and grabbed her by the head, pushing her head into the ground and punching her while the other officers were fighting with him as well. Eventually, they're able to gain control. So we have several defensive action reports, and I'll kind of go through them in just somewhat in order so that you can understand. The initial responding officers, the report, during the fight, had delivered elbow strikes to the individual's head and then used a head pin technique, which is we call segmenting, to help control the individual. And with the assistance of the other officer and the on-duty sergeant, they were able to handcuff that person. So the other officer in a particular incident also filed a defensive action report for stepping in and physically struggling and taking the individual down to the ground. Pulling up that report. So in that, the officers here documenting the attempted restraint using an arm bar and a wrist sleeve, and that they were eventually able to pin and hold him down onto the ground, where they were able to eventually get him handcuffed. There was a third report filed for when this individual was brought to the station. So when he was taken into custody, he was still combative and needed to be restrained so that he could be brought into the station and set onto the bench. And so we received a third defensive action report. Again, this is to document the use of a wrist lock that was employed to control this individual while they were shackled and cuffed to the bench. And then the last one is another defensive action report that I filed for basically doing the same thing, using an arm bar technique while we were trying to shackle and cuff the individual for his arraignment. Needless to say, the individual was arraigned in just a public defender who couldn't even bring him to court. So public defender was representing, the DA's office. This happened during court. They were arraigned and ultimately just transported. So he stayed in the car while that was happening. And the
He's
DA.
arraigned in the car?
DA and the public defender, they did not want to get him out of the car, because of this, what was taking place.
How uncommon is that?
Huh?
Is that a common occurrence? People are arraigned in the car?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's highly unusual. And in this particular case, knowing the defender's office and the DA's office were present, court was in session at this point.
Yeah.
And it just would have been too much of a concern, a safety concern, to unhandcuff that individual, get them into the court, and then potentially have to fight with them and continue to fight with them there. So.
When you say transported to.
Ulster
Yeah,
County
Ulster
Jail.
County
Yep.
Jail.
He was remanded on bail and then transported to Ulster County Jail. So the next case involves 3 defensive action reports. Really what we have here are almost like 2 separate incidences, but they were assigned the same case. So we responded to trespassers on top of McGillicuddy's. And while one of the members was en route, they observed a fight that had broken out on Plattekill Avenue. So they stopped, attempted to break up that fight, and the subjects involved would not comply with verbal direction. And so the OC spray there were 2 individuals involved in this. The first is a 24-year-old male, approximately 5 feet 4 inches tall, 140 pounds, medium build, white. And the other person involved was 25-year-old male, 7 inches tall, 140 pounds, medium build, black and white. So the individual member here deployed their pepper spray. The individuals then stopped fighting. They were taken in custody and processed, treated by rescue for the pepper spray, and then released on appearance tickets. While that was going on, the officers were dealing with the trespassers, and this resulted in another defensive action report. In this particular case, one of the individuals who was trespassing is a 23-year-old male, white, approximately 5'10", 160 pounds, medium build. In this particular, the subject jumped off the roof as they were trying to get the people off. He jumps off and he runs. The staff from the establishment ends up tackling him down to the ground. The officer then just secures him, uses a wrist lock to control the individual's hands and secures him. So for defensive action for us was simply the wrist lock and documenting that. They were this individual processed at the scene and on the appearance tickets to come back to court. And so the next incident that we have is there are two defensive action reports. Just want to double check on this. Yep. So there are 2 defensive action reports on this. This was for actually it was while they were processing individuals for the trespass and the other fight. Another fight breaks out in the Chase parking lot, in the bank, the Plattekill Chase Bank parking lot. The officer, somewhat large altercation takes place. The officer walks over there, attempts to disperse the individuals involved, and ultimately deploys their pepper spray. Trespass. Another fight breaks out in the Chase parking lot in the bank of the
Sorry about that.
So 2 people were sprayed. The first is 27-year-old male, approximately 5 feet 10 inches tall, 100 pounds, medium build, black. The other person involved is 20-year-old male, 5 feet 8 inches tall, 160 pounds, medium build, white. Both individuals were sprayed and taken into custody. They were processed and released on appearance tickets.
And just to repeat, those two were just fighting each other?
Well, there were part of a large, it was a couple different fights that were breaking out. They were there, and then it's hard to describe because when you look at the video, they're fighting, but there's another group that's fighting and others that are jumping into it. So the officers walking in as he's dispersing. There's a fight going on here. He kind of moves to them. These two are going at it. He goes to try to break them up, and he just says pepper. He sprays on. He ends up spraying this group. That ends up stopping the others, and then people start to disperse at that point. These are the two that ended up getting arrested.
And this is different from when I went and looked at the body camera videos.
Yes.
This is a separate night. That
Yes,
seems just as crazy.
yes.
And so I know P&G's has done temporary, they are looking at IDs and they're trying to keep people from coming, who are coming from all over. Like when I look at these, none of these people are from New Paltz. When I look at their addresses in these detention reports, so these people are all at McGillicuddy's.
I can't say that they're in town. I don't think I think people are still getting into P&Gs, they're still getting into McGillicuddy's, they're still hanging out in town as a whole. It's some don't even make it into the bars and still hang out. Others that, make it in and we still, that they were able to bypass whatever measures P&G's or McGillicuddy's has in place, and we're still dealing with issues. The other part of this that I see, and I've gone in the last couple of Friday nights and the Saturday mornings, there are no taxis running anymore. And that is a huge issue. I can't tell you how many people come into town with no ride to get out, and we're dealing with people just hanging out. Last Friday night, all of the bars are pretty much closed at 3:15, and you're still dealing with people till 4:30, 4:45 in the morning. And
Wow.
there are people that are just laying on the sidewalks, just passed out, or hanging out. So for us, it's really trying to just make sure no issues arise as we're trying to disperse. But there are no taxis running anymore. Pre-pandemic, it was there were taxis all over up and down Main Street. Unfortunately, and it's not just New Paltz, Poughkeepsie, Kingston, Newburgh. When we call for people, they'll say, "Hey, can you give me a taxi here?" We'll make that phone call for them, and it's just there's no one that's running overnight.
Oh. Interesting.
Well, I do think based on the current trends of the public health situation, that I think some of the bar life might be curtailed as we continue towards the fall. The right room. Yep.
And I think that may be helpful. I do think
Do you think I am actually curious about that. So you think the large correlation there is specifically the lack of transportation?
I don't think it's just that. I think it's a confluence of events that are, that people are getting out that haven't been out. People are
Gotcha.
hungry. It's not just the bars. I mean, we've dealt with hostilities out of that on different traffic stops. You name it. It's not. I don't think there's one thing. And I think what we are trying to figure out is how do you navigate these issues in a post-pandemic and a post-bail reform world. I understand that bail needed to be reformed, just like Discovery did. I'm not saying that I get that, but I also look at it as the people that we're encountering know we can't do anything. They know we're going to arrest them, we're going to release them on an appearance ticket, and they're going back at it. One of the defensive action reports. We had a sergeant who ended up, the reference one I made in the detectives. That sergeant got spit in the face, goes to the hospital. That sergeant is still in the hospital, waiting to be seen. The individual involved, arrested, processed, released on an appearance ticket, and we deal with them again before the sergeant's even released from the hospital. there, I don't know what the answer is, and we need to try to find, figure that out. But when I used to work nights, there are times, having, police bail and or arraignment was a useful tool, because people understood that, hey, that third strike may cost you a little bit more than the first two. And so not having that, and really people knowing that we don't have that, it's been an issue. I watched a video where they're decontaminating somebody at the police at the old PD. And there's a person in the background just yelling to the officers, profanity laced, give me my ticket. I know you can't, and people know. And I get that, but how we operate and how we can prevent issues from continuously happening, it's difficult. And I don't, that's what we're trying to sort out.
What was curious to me, or troubling to me, was that in at least two of those incidents, people were striking police officers before they were even being arrested and processed. Is that correct in that? And have you, Chief, have you seen this kind of hostility toward officers in your service in New Paltz?
Not to this degree. I mean, and it's really why I feel I'm extremely proud of the officers. We're going to make our mistakes. We're going to have our, we're going to trip up. I think for me, what's difficult is we ask our people to be human and to have some humanity, and I get all that, but everybody has a boiling point. And yet if that officer says the wrong thing, uses a profanity, or says something that may be construed as unprofessional, then, there are penalties, there are repercussions. And so I'm just proud of our people and what they do, because they are experiencing that. And for me, in the position I sit, it's frustrating.
Can you feel that boiling point rising? I mean,
I feel the boiling point.
Folks who are there under stress, you start to feel that, and you're like, oh, we're about to have an issue.
I
Because
think
it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of when, not if. Do you sense that, like, oh, we're starting to boil here?
I am worried about that. We are, staffing is an issue. As I said to you, I mean, we have mandated people at an unprecedented rate this year. I don't see, we have two, and we'll talk about it later on, but I was going to talk about two officers that are in field training that are on the civil. They're doing well. And my intent before the board in October, and ask for them to be approved as full-time members to fill two of our 3 slots effective November 1st. I do think we need to take a hard look at how useful and effective part-time police officers are. I don't think it's sustainable to rely upon them as much as we have. It's hard to keep them. Case in point is this year, Ulster County is not giving a civil service exam for police officer. Dutchess County is. So 2 of our 3 who are not on any list, or three of our 3 part-timers are not on a list to take that exam. They establish a residency, then they're gone. So I do think we need to look at that and look at whether or not financially, if it's, I understand that health insurance is always, and those legacy costs have to be taken into account, but we, in the last 10 years, have spent almost, if not over, $300,000 on people that are not here training. If you look at for example, and you can jump to it now, sort of, but if you look on the personal services form that I have that I included in the monthly report, flipping to it. It's towards the back. It's after the lieutenant's training report. There's a personal services expenditure.
Yeah, the overtime is pretty significant.
The overtime is significant, but what's even more significant, if you look, is 408 hours of training and the cost that is. On average, to get a new officer through phase 2, just through phase 2 field training, and then through radar, DWI, breathalyzer, it's almost $16,000 to get an officer operational. And that doesn't include, the overtime that you pay for the field training. So,
That's $10,000 of training just in the month of July.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that we should not get caught up in short-term savings, and then, and ignore the long-term costs. You know, yes, there are long-term costs, but there are also long-term benefits of having people stick around. Because you learn a lot on this job, I think, and you get better at it. And I think it's great that we train people and they leave, but I would like to train people and have them stay and reap the rewards of that good training. And also the culture. I think right now, I think we have a good culture. If we had a bad culture within the department, I would say, fine, go away. But I don't see that bad culture. I see a good culture.
Yeah, I think that the challenge is that while we have that culture that people are like, this is a good quality of life here in New Paltz, good place to be a police officer, doesn't pay as
Yep.
well. So you're gonna lose that battle, especially with a part-time officer who's like, hey, if you're not gonna give me a full-time job and the pay's better somewhere else, yeah, I gotta take that job.
How many roughly of our officers live within the New Paltz Gardner area? And I apologize for putting you on the spot there.
like 6 or 7, yeah, about that, I think, give or take.
And the two you're looking at moving in, are they?
Two that, yeah.
New Paltz Gardner?
Yes, and like New Paltz Gardner, so it's in this rough area, yeah. So, yeah, and we're trying, and, you know, it's one of the things, you know, I know we spoke about when we talk about the ideal of a reasonable officer, you know, when you have that, you want to keep that. And where I struggle, and I do think recruiting, hiring, and retention in this profession, it's an existential crisis. This agency alone, in the next 5 years, you're looking at losing 300 years of police experience added up. If you take, I mean, between the retirements that are coming up, including myself and lieutenant that are eligible, I'm not saying I'm going anywhere, but my point is, like, you're talking about a lot of turnover here, a tremendous amount of turnover. And to be able to, you know, figure out ways that we can retain some of these people that we're hiring now so that they'll be here when I leave, I want that. I think we have, I want to be able to leave this place better than when I came. And having good people that we know that can carry that baton is going to be huge.
And I think it's where the commission's report on, what does it mean to find that ideal officer? Not just someone who's qualified, meets the qualifications, but this is a person who can make a real contribution to our community and the police force. When we find that person, we have to be able to hire, have to be able to say, we want you on our force, here's a full-time job, you're going to start, building a career here.
I mean, and it's frustrating because the laws constrain us. So we lost Officer Marsh, and she went to Putnam County. Obviously, we're never going to match the pay there. But when I looked to try and replace her with Officer Yeager, and now I try to replace her with Officer Marsh, because Officer Marsh had taken a civil service exam, but took it and didn't have that score applied to Ulster County. It was only in Sullivan. There's no score sharing. I mean, I worked my way up to New York State Department of Civil Service, and I was told you can't do that. And for me, it's frustrating. I'm like, I have a great officer. Why can't I just plug them in and move forward? Joe Schneider, my predecessor, I think did a phenomenal job in hiring people and really trying to diversify and make this agency reflective of the community it represents and it serves under constraints that are difficult to work with. And then also on top of that, everybody's always like, when you're a good officer, everybody knows it. I was coming back from Boston the other day and I get a call from a colleague in another agency asking about one of our part-time officers who I'm planning on asking to hire full-time. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, heard some good things. And I'm like, he's just field training but on their list. He's not going, but my point being, like, everybody knows. Everybody knows.
And
And
everybody's probably in the same situation in some way or another, and they're gonna be after those officers, and you have to be able to move quickly.
And it is, and going back to about stress, I think the stress, I mean, I'm not out there all the time and maybe it's a good thing because I've watched some of these videos and my stomach gets sick. I am sick to my stomach. And I'm super appreciative of what, the restraint that our people have been using, because it really is, I'm frustrated and I'm sitting behind just watching a video.
Can I ask a silly question? Is like, are you, maybe not silly, but I see in those first couple cases, no taser, no deploying a taser, no threatening a taser. Were you surprised that we didn't go to next level kind of things? Or is like, no, they did exactly what they're supposed to do?
No, I think that they're doing what we're asking in terms of that. I mean, the taser in many of these situations, it wouldn't really be a good and effective way when you have that struggle because people are moving, the chance of a disconnect are high.
Uh-huh.
I think the lieutenant can speak to that even more eloquently than I know he can speak more eloquently to it. But, the use of OC spray is really what we have been really leaning into because number one, it more often than not stops the individuals from, in a tracks, and it minimizes the amount of force that we have to use to then, take them into custody and or break it up. Usually the OC is a pretty effective tool in stopping those incidences from happening.
Thanks.
So I have this next case for the defensive action. There are 3 reports that are involved. In this particular case, this was a fight that broke out on Main Street in the area, I guess, in front of McGillicuddy's, but 2 individuals got involved in the altercation. There's only 1 person listed, and so in this person listed on these reports, on 2 of the 3 reports, 20-year-old male, 6'4", 190 pounds, large build, black. He was fighting with another individual. The officers walk over, they try to get the individuals to separate, pepper spray. The one individual goes down, the other individual gets sprayed and then takes off into the crowd. And the officers try to find that individual and able to locate that. One of our members deployed pepper spray in this case. And the other 2 are documenting the fact that they had their pepper out. So for one of the officers, this same subject is listed. He never used the pepper spray, but it was out, it was aimed. And then there's no name listed on the defensive action report because the officer just had their pepper spray out. So it's documenting the fact that they unholstered their pepper spray and it was out of in their hands. So that was the reason for the 3 reports there. And in this particular case, like I said, the fight breaks out, they're actively fighting, not complying with any verbal direction. They end up going right onto the ground into the middle of the street. And that's when the pepper spray is deployed. The one individual was taken into custody and released on an appearance ticket, treated by New Falls Rescue and then released on an appearance ticket. And then the last defensive action report was actually reflected for an incident that occurred back in May. This was one that we had investigated. In this particular case, that the officer involved in this, it was a disturbance that occurred downtown, and in this particular report, there was a concern in terms of the officer and how they approached that situation to begin with, and then the techniques used to take that individual in custody. So this was handled as an internal investigation, and resulted in command discipline for us. Let's see. In terms of the monthly training report, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we have 3 part-time officers on the month that are in field training right now, doing extremely well. Tyler White, Tiffany Claude, and Michael Vespi. Vespi and White are the 2 that are on the civil service test, and that I would be asking the board to look at in October. We talked a little bit about the personnel expenditures. You saw that. And in terms of schedule, you know, how it's impacted us. I don't know if there are any other questions related to the monthly report.
Nope.
Okay.
So we can move on to the review of the recommendations of the NPPRRC. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or no, 4 of those, and then the review of the Citizen Police Academy curriculum. Yep. So I'll hand it over to.
So Michelle, the only 2 I had for the recommendations were the stops.
Yes.
Okay, and the matrix.
And then we're
Oh, the
discussing.
FOIL.
Yeah, those are the policies. Yeah,
Discussing
yeah.
policy issues.
So before we begin, just to clarify, and I don't know if you want to talk at all, Jen, but you know, I had a conversation with the members of the committee after last month's meeting. So there is definitely some confusion on my part, and I apologize, misrepresenting that the recommendation was to have the body worn cameras on all the time. That was not the intention of that. It was in 2 different sections, so I apologize in the report. And so really, what we went over on the initial, when we initially talked about that recommendation, is what is the accurate portrayal of what the committee wants. It's that they're used, make sure the officers are trained, that they're using these cameras. And like I said that last meeting, I believe that, you know, the amount of data that we have stored up as evidence is the fact that, you know, our officers are really using them and feel comfortable with them.
I don't want you to take the responsibility because in our editing process, we were trying to work so fast that fix it in one and not in the other. That was our fault for not going back and checking our consistency. That is not.
Well, but in summary, your policy around body worn camera is in alignment with what the commission has ultimately asked for. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for clarifying.
So the recommendations to discuss tonight, the first was that anytime an officer stops a civilian, provide the person with a business card containing a name, badge number, and a clear reason for the stop. No, do you know why I pulled you over? Allowed. So with that, you know, we have amended both the vehicle traffic policy, and we prior to this, we had enacted the right to know policy, where officers are required to offer and provide a business card. They should, number one, make, you know, anytime they're encountering an individual, whether it be a vehicle traffic stop, a field interview, explaining the reason for the interaction. And if that interaction does not result in the issuance of a UTT, a report of some sort with the officers identifying information, that officer is provides a business card. I think probably the best example is that Kiva Taylor to Officer Marsh. That was, you know, an example of that. So we have been doing that, and that is, you know, something that should be reflected in their supplemental reports. And what we are doing as well is, and I think I mentioned this in one of the previous meetings, is our supervisors, all our sergeants are tasked with reviewing at least 2 body worn cameras every week, two body worn camera videos every week. And that's really it's primarily done for the training purposes, just to make sure that, you know, we're doing everything we need to do. It may not always be a vehicle and traffic stop or a field interview. It could be an arrest, could be, you know, an investigation of some sort. But, you know, part of that is, and so that's a way to, you know, verify that. Another way to verify the officer doing what we're asking them to do.
Should we just clarify when is identification and the business card not offered
if we're giving, I mean, they still may give it to you, but the policy is that if I'm not providing you with anything with my name, my badge number, or my information on it, then I'm going to provide you with my business card. So for example, if I'm issuing you a summons for, speeding, that has all that information on there.
Gotcha.
So, that's the idea. I mean, you're still handing them out. It's getting to the point now that sometimes people call, no, I have yours, can I get yours? Or, so people are amassing a collection. Yes. If they were top cards, you could have a rookie year. But, I mean, all kidding aside, I think it's good. I think it's important that, we start out that interaction with just letting someone know why we're there. Because I think that can right away help calm a situation, allay a concern. So I think it's good. And I think our officers see that and understand, the importance of it. Right. So the last recommendation for tonight is that a discipline matrix be created for the NPPD within the next 6 months. It includes penalties for unauthorized use of force and failure to use body cameras. So this is something SC Lewis and I have worked on and provided you all with a draft copy of where we're at. At this point, I feel we're in a pretty good place with it. I was, and I have to credit SC, no offense to anyone else in the community, Jen, but like SC really pushed on this, and I thought it was, first I was a little hesitant, but the more we talked about it and looked at it, I agree, and I had the opportunity to speak with some of the National Academy, some of the attendees in the National Academy, the FBI National Academy I went with from around the country, and many of their agencies employ a matrix as well. It provides a certainty to the public, but it also provides a certainty to the officers. And I think that that's important. And so, I guess, the plan at this point is to just look at this a little bit more. I've continuously look at it, maybe make a couple changes, but once we have a draft that, we feel comfortable with, I'll provide that to, my plan is to provide that to the town's labor attorney, just to make sure. I don't know what, labor implications there are with any of that. Have them review it, and then if there are suggested changes, edits, or whatever, then I would bring that back to SE and anyone else on the committee that wants to weigh in, and then ultimately bring it back before the board and say, hey, this is what we have. What do you all think? And I did provide the commission or the board, the commission, a Word document version. So if there are any ideas that you all have, any edits, changes, thoughts, please feel free, to let me know. And then, we are actively working on that.
Is the lieutenant involved in reviewing this as well? Do any other officers get a chance to look at this and provide input?
We will. My point is, once I have what I think is a decent document, then my plan is to talk to them. Well, talk to the labor attorney, but then say to the union, this is what we're looking to do here. And what are your concerns?
Yeah.
What are your issues?
And does that mean like some of your senior officers get a look at it too and get a chance?
Well, everybody would.
Everyone.
Yeah, I would put it out. I mean, to all members, and then, but really, speaking to, more often than not, it's, what union leadership in terms of any issues that may arise from from the labor side of the bargaining. But again, we would put this out and say, hey, what are your thoughts? This is where we're at.
It's great
Appreciate it.
for your younger leadership to kind of, and folks who may be progressing through the ranks up to be part of these kind of talks and communications. So they're training for that. It's great.
Appreciate it. I mean, I think a lot of this just really codifies what we're doing, but I think it also provides grounds it in more certainty. The ranges in this matrix, are varied depending upon the issue we're talking about. And, for me here, it's not about, dropping the hammer on any and everything, because, there are always issues at play in a specific situation. And as I said, it could be the stresses that the officers are under, it could be, the situation at hand. So I think there's latitude in that. And really, I do think that this has allows for a restorative component as well. Because, and I think that goes to the heart of the idea of procedural justice. We want to have that same philosophy internally that we, looking to, and then externally. So, are there any questions about that? Jen, I don't know, you want to weigh in on anything? I know you guys with that.
No, that's spot on. The idea is consistency across the board, certainty for everybody involved. That's the absolutely positive that we are not.
And Jen, just because you're here, would you mind just commenting on how the commission talk together, and how are they doing the process that the police commission and the chief are going through and reviewing these, the recommendations one by one? Is it seen as a proper process from your standpoint and effective?
Yes, so we have committed amongst ourselves to have someone at ideally every police commission meeting so that there's some consistency, and we are not meeting regularly, but we are in communication and paying attention. We said that we would do that, and so we are trying to be very intentional about doing that.
Great.
So
I'd love to see if the commission is going to send someone to every police commission meeting, to have that person join us in the conversation on each of these things, so we can hear from the commission who's done some of this work and the chief on how we're meeting them. So thank you.
All right, so we can maybe move on to the review and discussion of the newly issued policy 140 for the personnel file FOIL request.
So as Supervisor alluded to earlier, Article 50A had been repealed, and so now personnel records, disciplinary records, all fall under Freedom of Information Law. There has been litigation related to that, and so this is actually a policy that was drafted by in speaking with the town's labor attorneys, who were in consultation with the union attorneys, and really codifies how we've kind of been handling these. Some slight changes here and there, but this is the policy that we have enacted and put into place. And as I said, specifically with in speaking with our attorneys on that. And what it does is just it makes the process more transparent. So it's online if anybody wants to review it. I don't know if there's any questions here related to that policy. Then the next policy was really regarding the electronic recording of interviews and interrogations. We made a couple changes or updates on this policy. This is one that was enacted and issued back in 2011. And really some of it was, some of the definitions were updated to be aligned with more modern media, even though they still mention VHS tapes in here. But the real big thing was, I think the most important addition made was just unequivocally making sure that our members know that any custodial interview and interrogation of a juvenile has to be recorded in its entirety. Previously, it was a man to speak, you would record that, but we have specially designated rooms if we ever have to speak with the juvenile. So those rooms are recorded, and then that has to be done from the get-go. So we just wanted to make sure that was in there, and that I think was really the biggest change in any of that. I don't know if there's any questions.
So this are the things that are highlighted?
Yes, those are the changes that were in
addition policy.
Yep.
With some changes.
Yep, and this new policy has been issued, reviewed, met with members, and is online and available to the public as well. So the way we do it for any of these policies, we'll make changes depending upon what it is. If it's a new policy, it's done in consultation with, it may be done with members, staff, depending upon what it is. And then in some of these, you really, there is no consultation because you're making the change to comply with case law. And that's what I think some of this is. Not, I think that's what some of this is. So you're putting that out there, and then it's issued to all members via email, and then it's reviewed by supervisors. So the supervisor at shift briefing will catch, the members, make sure that they have reviewed it, answer any questions that they may have related to that, and then there's a sign-off sheet that the member fills in to attest the fact that not only have they reviewed it, but have been afforded the opportunity to ask any questions related to it, and that they understand that they can ask questions later on regarding that policy. And so that was that, and then I think that's thing we have is we have a couple more, right?
Citizens Police Academy.
So the Citizens Police Academy, I forgot to print that one out, so I have it on my phone. I apologize.
My copy, please.
I'm good. This is online as well. It's an idea I was really excited about. I still am excited. But unfortunately, we don't really have. We have one person signed up at this point.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's something we're going to be able to do if we don't have more lined up by September 1st. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. And
Could we?
Sounds like a good article for HV1 to do about, if Terrence is listening, on looking for people to do the Police Citizens Academy.
But could we shrink them down to so maybe people may not be able to commit to the whole thing? Could you say, instead of having a multiple week thing, say we're going to do this one afternoon thing, sign up for this one afternoon. But I guess the downside is then you only get snippets. The sum is greater than the parts, maybe.
we may look at that. The other thing that I'm becoming more clued about, or I'm more despondent about, is the fact that with the COVID numbers, I don't know how many people want to sit in that classroom setting. So if we don't get enough people to register, or the numbers really prohibit us having this, then our plan is to move it to the spring. The reason that the numbers are important to me is because for us, this curriculum was designed not to indoctrinate people and make them feel like, hey, this is what we go through, but to really just kind of educate.
Yeah.
When we were doing the meetings for the Reform Reinvent, it was amazing about how many people know really nothing, not only about their local police department, but just about the system in general. So if you look, we have guest speakers from Ulster County Crime Victims Assistance Program, the County Attorney's Office, the Public Defender's Office, probation, the DA's office. I've got the sheriff coming in on one. I've got Captain Restivo from the state police to come in. So I really don't want to have them take that time if we don't have the.
So one thing I think is, it also seems like someone from HV1 is listening, a great expose for reporter, which we actually join the course and do it that way. But another idea too is that I know that we hear often from our public access on, creating content and having content. And again, I don't know what your comfort level is on doing it that way. Especially it might even make sense if we're seeing higher COVID numbers, just to maybe do some kind of online or public access version of this. Just a suggestion.
We could, and if we don't have the participation and the numbers continue to increase, we could look at doing that in the spring. I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna have to figure out how to make that work and maybe making some phone calls.
No, I actually was going back and forth with Anton Stewart the other day, so I might mention it.
Okay. No, but
Chief, can you just give an update in public here about the time commitment?
So the time commitment, so these are 8 weeks, 8 Wednesdays, September 8th through October 27th. It's from 6 to 9 p.m. So there's a 3-hour time commitment for each. And it is a lot, and I get that, but we're really trying to make it. We're trying to not only educate but also provide some resources. So, for example, we're going to be doing in the 4th week. It's our police mental health. So Chris Dennehy from Step One and Phil Kraus are going to be doing a 3-hour modified block instruction in terms of how to recognize people in crisis, how you can potentially deal with that, and resources that are available should you have to deal with that. The last week, for example, we're doing the opioid prevention and response team is coming in. So it's doing an Narcan training, as well as Matt Goodnow and the rescue squad staff are going to come and, do rescue breathing. So we're covering that. As I said, I get it. It is a heavy commitment. We are sprinkling a little bit of reality and just reality-based training in there. We were looking hopefully to do a field trip towards the end up to Kingston to use the firearms training simulator up there. So I think that, but again, I agree with you. It may not be feasible. If we don't get the participation or the numbers rise, it may be best that we postpone or try to see if we can offer
I think it's
something.
I think it is such a good idea that you put so much effort into it that I definitely, and I'm happy to help if possible. I definitely think that you should do it. We should get some good community use out of it. I mean, you guys have really thought this out, and I think it's really impressive. So I'm definitely willing to chat with public access,
Okay.
or if there's other
This,
means
this
that
is
it
like,
can go to.
with the COVID numbers, this may be tough.
I think it's gonna be. I mean, yeah, we're gonna talk about it later, but I think it's.
I would suggest specifying a number that you'd like.
We're looking for a minimum of 10 people. I
So,
apologize.
a minimum of 10 people have to sign up by September 1st, or this might get postponed till the spring. I think the timing is a little challenging. Right after summer, coming right after, this is the first Wednesday of Labor Day. I think it's a little challenging, the time with COVID. And I also think it's a little challenging given what's going on in the police force right now. And so it may be a good time to say, we're not quite there, and let's build interest in it and offer it when we do get those folks, and put a schedule out there for the spring. And if you don't get enough by September 1st.
Absolutely.
It looks like a great program.
Yeah, and I really applaud you for planning it out that way, Dave.
Appreciate it. I stole some ideas from colleagues.
That's all right.
I can't take
Those are some of the best
Share
ideas. Yeah.
Share some ideas.
Rob,
Okay.
this is Alex. This is Alex. I just had a quick question. Again, it sounds like a wonderful idea. I think what I reiterate what everybody else on the board said. It's so nice to see the amount of time and dedication that you spent on this. I wish I could take it. Is there a media? Is there like a social media bloop that you have out there that we could get people to come in? Like how could we share this?
Well, we posted it on our Facebook page. It's on our website. We did have there was an article, New Falls Times did put something in a couple weeks ago. And I get it, it is a commitment. So if there's any other ideas that you all have and ways that we can share it, that's why I wanted to talk about it here. Maybe that generates. But as I said, I do know I'm becoming less optimistic as the numbers increase, in terms of COVID and where we're at.
Did we ever compile kind of a list of people, when you guys were reaching out to stakeholder groups, I'm assuming there's like a master email list, I'm assuming?
We have contacts for the groups that we were in touch with.
Yeah.
We were in touch with groups, not individuals. Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have some way of getting in touch with groups of people. What we wanted, and knew was going to be a challenge,
Yeah.
and never really got, was input from communities that are most often inappropriately connected to the police, right?
Sure.
So we couldn't get them because of fear, because of, I don't know why, because we couldn't get them, right? So I can only speculate. So I'm wondering if the best thing here isn't to try and get both. Try and get at least the 10 people in person and put it on public access, because there are people who aren't going to come, but if it's available on social media, they may get to see and participate. And that feels interactive to everybody under 35, right? Like,
Yeah, I agree.
So, but I also think the energy in the room is different. If there's people in the room, so I think ideally you want both.
And we have a flyer or something like this that maybe we could send to all of those groups to send to their membership and say, sign up by September 1st.
I have not created a flyer, but
This is
I can
kind of,
definitely
could be
try.
the flyer right here or something like that. It's happening.
I can try to make it.
Yeah, I think it's good if we
Yeah.
wanted to reach out to them as well, and just let them know that, yeah.
Yeah, and let them send it to the membership and say this is coming up with all the info and how to sign up.
And in the worst case scenario, if we end up having to reschedule, or if the code number make it really prohibitive, then we can, we'll stay in contact, and we don't have to wait till the spring. There's a way to make it, to at least do some of this on a virtual platform.
Do your own podcast, so I see comment, you're gonna find me for your own podcasting.
I want to blend into the woodwork.
I think Jen's right, though. I think there's an energy in the room when people are discussing this together that is much better than just talking.
Totally.
That's why I
Nothing
said
personal.
cross-technology,
That's right.
right, and that's functionally what we're creating, it's TEDx.
No, that's a good way of looking at it.
And I'll announce it, at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, cool. Thank you for that.
So the last item, or for this portion of the meeting, is review and referral to the town board for approval, the hiring of Megan E. Miller as part-time dispatcher.
One second.
So Megan is, just to make you all aware, she's a 2000 graduate from High School, resides in New Paltz, looking to pursue a career in law enforcement, to be that first step. We conducted the background, and references spoke very highly of her. Excited. This is, hopefully that this is someone that we can bring in, and maybe, start dispatch, and then if she does really want to pursue that career, we can help, make that happen. And in terms of being a police officer, so we're excited, and just would be appreciative if the town board was able to approve that hiring, so we can start for field training.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Let's see, so that's all we have for I make a motion to adjourn the New Paltz Town Board of Police Commission meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye. Thank you, Rob.
Please thank everybody.
Thank you, I will.
So I'll shoot you a text, and then whenever, I'm happy to chat.
Sure.
Thanks for coming to the meeting.
Email.
Sorry, what?
You need me to resend that email?
I didn't realize you sent it today. I probably got it. I had told you it were insinuated after. Yeah. Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night. Are we still Zoom? Are we YouTubing right now?
Now we're doing town board, unless you want to take a break for a few minutes. Use the,
No, we're streaming.
yes, we're streaming right now.
Okay.
Don't say anything you don't want to have on YouTube.
So I am going to,
I saw they had a garbage truck pulled over at Stewart the whole day.
Really?
That shouldn't have been. I was
Oh,
like happy to see that we're enforcing that law.
be careful, not everyone's always. I'll say that's
That's all right.
important.
My turn. I have enough friends at this point.
You're good, you're good.
I don't know.
all right, so let's see, I will like to make a motion to open the town board meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and for the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Man, that really threw us off.
Yeah, that's-
Mr. Ross would not be happy.
Oh, man, okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Aye.
And so announcements the same as before, but I'm going to repeat it. This is the New Paltz Opioid Overdose Prevention and Response Team. The OOPRT will be offering an in-person Narcan training and free Narcan kits. Recovery support as well as harm reduction information and resources will also be available. No appointment or registration needed. Simply stop by Hasbrook Park on Tuesday, August 31st between 4 and 7 p.m. This important community event is being offered in recognition of International Overdose Awareness Day. And with that, any other announcements? Not, I would like to open up the floor for public input. If you would like to make a public comment, raise your hand on Zoom and I will help you unmute. And can keep it to 3 minutes. And are there any public comments? If not, then I would like to move on to the first agenda item. The motion to approve the hiring of Megan E. Miller as part-time dispatcher beginning August 23rd, 2021 at a rate of $165 per hour.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Like to, so the consent agenda, the Rocky Ridge resolution has been posted on the town website. Motion, and this is for to allow no parking at Rocky Ridge. Motion to approve and authorize items 2A through 2H on the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Like to make a motion to approve the August warrant in the amount of $1,602,039.26.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And so now the last item is a discussion about in-person meetings and requirements for noticing meetings.
Yeah.
So if we're here, we're wearing masks. We've moved the tables much closer together. It's hard for people to hear us at home when they're watching on YouTube or on Zoom. It's harder with the masks, but so one of the ideas is as the numbers go up, because the numbers are going up, that we may be going back to an all remote meetings, not just this board, but planning boards, things like that. You know, even if you're vaccinated, you may have people in your home who are immunocompromised or unvaccinated because they're not eligible for vaccines, or they may have underlying conditions. So we're a little bit worried. We want to comply with open meetings law, and so we want to have a discussion about this going forward. And I don't know if people have any thoughts on that.
I have a feeling that this will probably be our last in-person meeting for a bit. If we just look at the trajectory of the public health scenario going into July 4th weekend, there was, I think, 12 or 13 active COVID cases in the entire county. We're looking at about 500 right now, and we're growing at a very high rate. The reality is we're at a point where when we were at this level of the public health scenario previously, we were not in person. The real big difference now is that obviously a number of these executive orders that will need a certain way have lapsed. And I don't think we should discount the fact that there's a decent amount of turmoil in Albany at the current moment. And so these are, I think, some of the casualties of that these are important items that have not really been dealt with by the state yet. And I do think they will be, but it may not be on a timetable that makes sense for us.
Yes, so that's what worries me is that I think that the open meetings law, and so just to kind of describe everyone, under open meetings law, you have to provide access for the public to view and participate in the meetings. And you can do that by allowing people to enter via Zoom or enter this room. But there's this one line in the open meetings law that says, when you notice the meeting, you need to provide the address of any participant in that meeting. Voting member, not a consultant, or so in theory, the chief could have joined us via Zoom tonight and that would have been fine. But for board members, if during the pandemic, we all joined from our homes, and we're allowed to do that because the governor's executive order waived the requirements of open meeting law. Without that waiver, we would say, I'm joining from my house, and if you want to come and participate in a meeting, you can come to my house. And not everyone is comfortable with that. You know, a planning board member may not, if I have kids that are unvaccinated, I'm not comfortable saying that anyone who wants my house.
I mean, let's just call it what it is. The reason why we're doing this is because we're in a pandemic. So the notion that we would want people to be in our homes because we didn't want to be public because it was a public safety issue makes zero sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are ways around it, like you could have a board member, I could say, okay, I'm not gonna zoom in from my house, I'm gonna zoom in from the community center and I'll be here by myself.
Yeah.
I think that's also fine, but then you may feel comfortable getting out of I would then have to notice saying that I am joining the meeting from this location. And if the meeting ends at 11 o'clock at night, everyone knows that I'm here by myself at 11 o'clock. I may not feel comfortable letting everyone know that I'm going to be walking out into the parking lot alone. You know, I'm just saying, in theory, a person may not feel comfortable that not everyone wants to walk out in the dark parking lot by themselves at 11 o'clock at night when the meeting is over. So I think we're putting these weird issues together, and that's what we're trying to figure out how to do. You know.
I mean, I think, and I believe you have done this because we talked about the issue a bit, but I think it's really important that we reach out to our assembly and senator.
I have. I've reached out. First, I reached out to the Committee on Open Government and said what my concerns were. And I said, like, we're following the intent of the law, that we're streaming the video live on Zoom. Anyone can join us. We're streaming live on YouTube. We're streaming live on public access. We replay it on YouTube and public access. We allow people to participate. What my concern is saying that anyone can come into my house or your house or a planning board member's house and join the meeting.
I mean, I'm just gonna be really frank. If we were doing this way and there was a member of the public who wanted to come to my home, I would not allow them in. And I realize that violates open meetings laws, and I'm gonna guess here, and someone can correct me, that there's no one here who would also agree to that.
Yeah.
So that being said, I actually do think if the difference between us having a quorum on the town board is the comfort level of meeting in our homes without allowing publics to physically appear in our homes, then I would recommend that absent the state taking action on this, which I think very well they could by the time of our next meeting, I would argue that I think we should actually just proceed that way, allow for the public input the way we have, which is really the intent of this law, is to allow for the public to have input. And if a member of the public wants to file an Article 78 saying the actions of the board that have taken are not valid because they weren't allowed to sit in our living rooms, and a judge wants to say in a pandemic that was not a good thing that the board did when they deliberated on these items, then I think we should run that risk, because I think that's a risk that's not as bad.
I'm less worried about the town board than I am the planning board.
Yeah.
I think an applicant may say, you know what, I'm going to throw some sand in the gears, and I'm going to sue you because you didn't follow the meeting law, and I didn't like the decision that the planning board made.
Right.
I'm not an attorney,
Yeah.
but again, we're not talking about not providing documents to the public. We're not talking about not allowing the public to participate. We're talking about not allowing the public to sit at our dining room tables while we sit at our laptop because we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think we could also, one idea I had is we could follow the letter of the law as well, but I think we're allowed to put our own public health restrictions on it, just like we did for this, like, mandate for town property. So we could say that anyone is allowed to come to my house and join the meeting if you're vaccinated, you're wearing a mask, and you provide a negative COVID test taken within the last half hour.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm mostly,
No, I know.
how do you like follow?
And what stops us from just being like, we're gonna continue meeting in person here and doing it the way we're doing it. That is by the letter of the law. Right?
Yes, it is. I think there may be, so if I were, and I keep bringing up the planning board, and no one has mentioned this to me,
Yeah,
But I think it's different for us. If I were a volunteer,
Yeah.
like, if you don't notice the meeting correctly by saying like, and I asked, is there a way to waive this? You know, so if anyone wants to join remotely, like, when we do this, we have to say, this person is participating in the meeting from this location, and people can join if they want.
Yeah.
That's what,
like Julie.
yes.
Right,
And so
I am here.
Some of the members in a tough situation where they say, well,
And me.
we need- yeah, anyone, you know,
Well, does your participation today, I mean, Julie's, were they both listed as places? Like Julie,
No.
your place in Wyoming, people are invited to attend. It's public.
I'll just say that
and technically,
the place that is listed for me is the library, and that's where I attend normally. And I actually thought it would be, something I would do at some point where it was appropriate. Look at this, it's appropriate for me to say today. Actually, I had travel plans, unfortunately, that, to see a sick friend, and it coincided with the meeting, and I'm still attending, but I am not at that location because of a change in my plans because of my sick friend. So that's just for the record. If it's but I don't. But normally I do list the library, and that's where theoretically, if anyone was interested in joining, they could.
and if.
But I
you
do
also
think
have
it's
to be
not-
on video, or it does not. So the open
Sorry,
meeting law
that?
requires that you have to join by video and not phone.
I mean, if we're gonna be really technical and not knocking any of the colleagues, but I just think it's an important conversation about open meetings law. Theoretically, there are 3 voting members of the town board right
Correct.
Correct. I mean, again, that's the same thing that happened to me. I was usually always at home, but I
Think lost you. I guess I mostly want to have a discussion about this. I don't think I do agree with Dan, but I'm mostly doing this for us to have a conversation in the open about this as we plan, so we can be prepared for things going forward. Like if the governor does not issue an executive order, how do we want to deal with this if not everyone still feels comfortable coming in person? I think the windows are open. We have masks on. I think we're safe. Hopefully people can hear us.
I'm in favor of continuing to come in person
Yeah.
as committee, but your point about the board is interesting in that if they're like, hey, I'm a volunteer, I'm not coming to this.
Yeah.
I feel an obligation that may be very different than what a planning board member may feel.
I agree. And then we lose quorum, and then they're not serving applicants because, like, well, how do I get my fence approved just because people can't come together? Like,
But
we
if I was
can't
a
slow
planning
that.
board member, I wouldn't want to list
Exactly.
this is my home and you're welcome to come. And go over your plan right here in my living room, not what people want to do. So we're in a bit of a conundrum.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think we
hoping
could-
that the law changes.
I mean, you could have, someone in this room, someone in that room. You could close the divider, someone could be in that room, and the members of the public could come in and participate. It's frustrating, the Senate and Assembly are going to address these issues. Senator Martucci and Assemblyman Cahill, they went back and forth on emails with me about this. This is going to be addressed, just not in the time frame that we have to deal with it over the next 2 months.
now.
And the governor may do something, but I assume this is pretty low on the list of
I
priorities.
think it might be.
You're starting a new job.
I personally like meeting in person because, to be really frank, I find it significantly easier to engage. I find it a lot harder on Zoom. So that's just my preference, but I know that not everyone feels that way, and we may not be able to do that depending on what happens. I would be in favor of us kind of establishing and really standing by a policy for our volunteers or even members of our own board who don't feel comfortable, and that we can just kind of have that agreed upon procedure to protect them, and then obviously allow the public to still engage. And then I kind of think, and I hate to say this out loud, but like, let the chips play where they may. Like, I feel pretty firm. If we reasonably have this conversation, we do that, even if we're not 100% within the letter of the law. I think we're doing the right thing by our community and the right thing by our volunteers.
I mean, I think tonight's a good example. People don't want to come to a meeting.
That was the most people we've had in a meeting.
You know, for the most part, I think, and when I brought this up to the senator's staff, we're not the only town talking about this. A lot of towns are having this issue, and one of the reasons that they want to address the open meetings law and make changes is that a lot of towns saw more engagement in their over the last year and a half because people could Zoom in. So it's actually a good thing. You know, people lead very busy lives, and not everyone has the time to come down and sit here for 2 hours, but you know what? They may go to the computer and Zoom in real quick or stream something and be like, oh, that's what I wanted to hear about.
Right.
And so
I like Dan's proposal. It's like, you know, given that they're not moving fast enough to address the real situation, that we act as if and kind of say, hey, you can join by Zoom, and instead of trying to like offer our public addresses and say, you know, you have to have a test within the last 5 minutes or something ridiculous like that, that kind of like just tries to meet that need. I'm okay with that personally.
okay.
That feel okay to you folks, Julie, Alex?
Exactly. Which are you referring to? What part of it
Alex
that,
texted me.
David, what part are you referring to as far as?
Just that we're gonna act as if the emergency measures have been returned.
Yeah.
And that we're going back to the old way, the pandemic way, even though the Senate and Assembly hasn't said we're back to emergency meeting laws. We're gonna act as if there are emergency meeting laws and hope they catch up pretty quick. But we're gonna
Right.
go back acting that way and risk the possibility of whatever someone's saying, this is not fair open meeting
Right.
laws, and then we'll be able to.
I think it's a
So
lot to
that would
ask.
be by Zoom. Everyone meeting by Zoom, you're saying, right, David?
No, I think what David is saying is like, we give board members the option. If people want to meet like this in person, they can, right?
Okay.
And so it's like, it could I think it's like tonight. If people want to meet in person, and anyone who wants to can do that. And if the public wants to join in that meeting, they're welcome to join. Like this meeting will still occur as long as one person feels comfortable sitting here running the meeting, this will happen.
And you're willing to be that person? Neil, I mean, I'll join you.
And at least I think, you know, as going forward, we'll keep looking at the numbers, right?
Yeah.
But then at some point, but anyone who wants to join via Zoom,
Including town board members.
board members, public consultants can do that.
Great.
Right.
That she agrees with our conversation.
Okay.
I just-
And so and we'll allow people to Zoom in to participate and make public comment. We'll allow board members to Zoom in and vote. And so planning board members.
Okay.
But we will not look
The one thing I was gonna say is, and I'm
to
sort
list
of,
their home address.
the one thing I was gonna say is I'm concerned though about how, when I'm joining, for example, I know what it's like. I hear 95% of what is said. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm like yelling, right? But when everyone's on Zoom, then it's clear as a bell. You know, for example, whenever Alex talks, it's like she's next to me. So, you know, it's a little easier for everyone to engage when everyone's on Zoom. So that I kind of liked that aspect of it because I just hear 100%. That's all, you know. So and especially when someone comes and speaks, it's a little harder to hear. Neil, you're just professor voice is always comes through. Not, you know, but not everybody's got that. So that's my only thing. That's why I personally think, you know, going for all Zoom is a great way to go. But that is based too on the fact that I have, you know, I just think that getting people together during these times indoors is a little risky, you know, and I like that it, you know, when people are on Zoom, including the public, they hear really well when it's all Zoom.
We could
So
also
that's my
just
opinion.
literally sit here on our, like, if the three of us wanted to come in person,
Oh, it might interfere,
the mics would interfere. Okay.
yeah. So you have to use the owl.
Okay.
But yeah, so like if we each had our laptops here and we were all talking individually, the feedback.
Yeah, that makes sense. You could mute,
But I-
well, that would get complicated.
Yeah, but I think we're probably gonna up there anyway, as the numbers go up. But I know when I talked to the senator's staff, there's an addition, one of the modifications they're making to the open meetings law is that if we were all on Zoom, and I use Zoom as just a generic term for, streaming, you could use Google Meet or whatever, but the town needs to provide a place where someone can participate, like if they don't have internet access at their house or on their own computer.
Yeah.
So you're effectively shut out of public meetings if you don't have internet or computer. That's the downside. We didn't hear a lot about that.
Yeah, you're-
But we're addressing that by having this meeting in public, but when the law, what they're proposing to add to the law is if it's a total virtual meeting, the town needs to provide a location where someone can go and join in. Like you would have yours where, like a public library, you could say, you could go to the public library and use the computer there. Or, if the town had a computer, like, you could have a computer locked up in the lobby and someone could go into like the lobby and use it. And that's just to make sure that, everyone, you're not locked out of the participating by not having access.
Absolutely.
Right, but I think we're still providing access as long as we're here in public to everyone. People in person, people online, so I think it's a good idea. I just want to make sure everyone's in agreement and we can tell the planning boards that they have the option to follow
To do the
these
same
rules.
thing, any planning board member who wants to attend via Zoom by their own home, they can do that, or they can be at the table. Are you saying that someone from the planning board will be at the table to other people in person, or not necessarily either that?
I haven't talked to them about it.
Okay, so you'll check, but for us, we're gonna say, like, you can come to the community center.
Yeah.
For this time, for such time as like, we don't even want to be sitting here with each other, we'll
Yeah,
then say, we're going back to full remote, and you can check in at the library.
I know it'll all be noticed, like this will be noticed. I don't want to do these things at the last minute. I want to make sure everyone knows, like, we can advance when we put the agenda out there. Because, we don't really have anything to hide. Even though we're wearing masks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have. Motion to adjourn?
All right.
All right. Thank you,
even though I
everyone.
can't vote. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you guys. Bye.
Julie.